What's up? We are going to figure out the best little old position for this. Let's move the anvil around. What's up? I had a little bit more setup to do with this particular one than I normally do, so came home, decided what we were going to make, and then I had to kind of do some things. So I decided to make an ULU because that's what Nisha, my wife, decided that I should probably make tonight. And we're going to do it out of Damascus. Now, the Damascus was already forged, so we're not going to be forging the Damascus, but we are going to make this ULU out of Damascus. This block is actually by, what's up, Elijah? How you doing? So, going to do an ULU, going to do it out of Damascus, and the primary goal for this is just to be able to stretch it out. And we're starting off with a big chunk of steel. It's about 5/8 of an inch tall by about an inch and a half wide, probably a little over an inch and a half wide, and about an inch and a half, so about an inch and a half by inch and a half square by 5/8 inch thick. And it's about a 100 layer billet. So we're going to go ahead and forge that down, move all the material where we need to get it to. And I think I'm going to do it by hand. I was debating on using the power hammer, but I think I'm just going to do it by hand and stretch everything out. I went ahead and welded on a little tab so that it's easy to, maneuver, because having a big old chunk of steel like that, trying to put in your tongs, is ridiculous. So it's like this right here. This is crushed W's. I was thinking about making it out of that, but again, a block of steel like that is a pain in the butt to move around with just regular tongs. So I'm not going to do that. That's going to end up getting cut up and restacked. But yeah, we're going to have some fun tonight. Forge this out. I'm assuming that this block is going to take a little bit of time to heat up, and we're going to have to get a little crafty with using the forge to make this happen, because my internal chamber is not exactly built for forging out a wide ULU. So we're going to go as wide as my forge will let me go. We're going to figure out what that is. So let's grab the hammers. Definitely be using the dog head on this one. Definitely be using the cross peen, straight peen on this one. That'll probably be most of what we really need to do this. So when it boils down to it, forging out a ULU out of a square, this is one of those builds where we really need to focus on, I need to flatten the billet out a little bit, and then I need to actually move the material where it needs to go. It's one of those things where when you start forging in the actual bevel, there's not going to be any plunge lines or anything like that, but whenever you actually start forging in that bevel, what it's going to do is by default, we start forging in this way, that material that's compressing has to go somewhere. It's either going to go out or it's going to go out this way. But most likely it's going to go like this. So whenever I start forging in that bevel, I'm going to be using the cross peen and straight peen, and I'm going to take that rectangle, or that square, and I'm going to forge it out this way, and that's what's going to make that ULU profile. So the edge has a little curve to it, flares out. That's what we're going to get the material to move in the right direction as we're doing this. This chunk of steel is probably going to take a minute to heat up. I've got it over in the forge right now. So we've got that heating up. I'm going to go ahead and put it a little bit further into the forge. So prior to this, I went ahead and welded on, like I said, a little tab onto the billet just to make it a little bit easier on me. What's up, Stardust? How you doing? What's up, Brian? It's just so I'm not going to be chatting much. That's fine. So we'll see if this live stream is as crazy as last week's. Last week's live stream hit 42,000 views. So that one was pretty nuts to have a live stream go, out to that many people. But of course, we typically pick up a lot of the people whenever we start actually forging, which we're going to be doing here in a minute. And what we're going to start off with is I'm really just going to use the dog head to kind of start pulling the edge down a little bit. So I'll show you on this block. So basically, I've got about that much steel, this area right here. I'm going to go ahead and just start forging on this edge here. So basically, this is going to be the cutting edge on that block. I'm just going to start pinching this down a little bit, and then I'm going to take a cross peen and I'm going to come in on that edge and I'm going to forge it this way. So we're compressing it down, but we're also widening it. Now, one of the things that's going to end up happening is I am going to end up forging the whole entire thing down a little bit, but I want to get that edge started before I actually start thinning it out a little bit. Just because the billet or the piece that we're messing with right now isn't as thick as that one right there. It's close, but not as thick. Okay, let's go ahead and grab it. As you can see, this is the piece that we're working with right here. And because it is Damascus, I'm not going to be forging it cold. Once it loses heat, I'm going to put it back in the forge. But you can see right now, it's already starting to open up like this. And that's just from doing a little bit of forging. So as we forge in those bevels, it's really going to start coming out this way. Now, I am, like I said, going to be taking this area. You might be able to see the layers right there. So we're going to take this, keep forging it, keep bringing it out. This ULU is going to have a pretty thick spine. So I'm going to leave what you would consider the spine at about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's going to taper down from that. So it's going to taper down and out. And I'll probably end up using either bone or antler for the handle on this one. But when it comes to forging this, we've got to move a lot of material. So we're going to get this compressed, and then we're going to get it opened up. And we're only going to compress it so much before we start opening it up, because in the process of flaring everything out with the cross peen, straight peen, we're going to end up compressing it even more as we do that. And the cool thing is, as I do that, it's going to make the Damascus have even more waves, because we're going to be using that cross peen, straight peen to to really forge aggressively on there, and then we're going to flatten it out, and it's going to end up messing with that Damascus a lot, instead of it all being like just layers, almost looking like a shell. What's up, man? What's up, Rick? I was banning boogers left and right. I bet you were. What's up, Bert? What's up, Mark? So, we've already got some heat into this thing. Because it's such a big block, it's going to retain heat pretty well. We're not going to have to worry about having super long heats in between the forging, but I'm not going to forge it cold. You don't really want to do that with Damascus. I'm going to let it come down in temp a little bit, but I'm not going to let it come down too far. Plus, it's a big chunk, and I'm not going to sit there and try and forge something that's, you know, that big as it's cold. Okay, we're starting again to just flare out even more. Now, the reason why I can't just continue to forge on the bevels and create the full shape is because whenever I go down and I forge this section right here thinner, it's going to open that up too. So we want to be able to use the cross peen straight peen on here to flare that out as we're thinning it out, because we're not going to be doing that on the top section. What you got here? Let's see here. Yep. So now I'm also not trying to get super aggressive with this, because if I forge it as fast as I can forge it, I will have an ULU forged in like, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 minutes. So I'm not getting after it as hard as I would. The one downside to an ULU is it doesn't have a bunch of profiling. It doesn't have a whole bunch of shapes where I'm having to forge in, you know, finger choils and handle profiles and all that stuff. So I could forge this a lot faster, especially if I just use the power hammer. But I could forge this a lot faster, but I want to be able to show y'all really what I'm doing without me just absolutely manhandling it and getting after it really fast, and without only having like a, you know, little bitty live stream. So whenever I start stretching things out, that's going to start adding time. But really, if I just got after it, yeah, I could probably forge this really fast. Yeah, it's definitely Miss Rivers. That's not Toby. He doesn't use punctuation. At least I don't think he does. So what are y'all working on? While I'm waiting for that to heat back up, is there anything particular that y'all are messing with right now? And even if you're not a knife maker and you're just watching this, you can also say, hey, I'm building a computer right now. Hey, I'm working on this painting or whatever. It doesn't have to mean that you are working on a knife whenever you're responding to this. It can be all kinds of stuff. Always interested to know what people are working on who are watching me do these live streams. we're starting to compress quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead on the next heat, use the cross peen, straight peen, open that up a little bit, and then we'll compress again. And as we start thinning this out, it's going to get hot quicker. So again, I'm going to be able to make this as big as my forge opening lets me. But on this next heat, we are going to use the Two Bastards, Texas Smithing and Supply cross peen. Again, we are going to be forging it like this. So this right here is the cutting edge. We're going to be forging across this way and expanding this out in multiple directions. So we're going to come in here and we're going to be forging it. I'm going to go ahead and bring y'all down and zoom y'all in. Let's see here. And right about there. This way y'all can actually see pretty up close what I'm doing. But we're going to end up coming in here and forging at an angle like this on that edge. And what it's going to do is it's going to move the material either direction. If we were forging on this side, it's going to push the material outwards. So outwards. We're forging on this side, it's going side to side. So that's what we're going to be doing on this next heat. Side to side. Okay, it's got about enough heat in it right now. Let's go ahead and see how good this angle is right here. So come in and side to side. Flip it over. So then we start pinching it. You can start seeing that there's dips in there, just like that right there. And we're going to start really flaring it out. You see how much wider it is now at the edge. Go back in the forge. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to come in. We're just going to continue to flare that out with this hammer. Now what I'm doing, whenever I'm hammering this, I'm taking this piece of steel and I am bringing it slightly up off the anvil to where primarily just the edge is touching the anvil, and then I'm slightly angling the head of the hammer too. So I'm pinching it down at an angle. I'm not laying it down here and then hammering flat on one side and then flat on another side and making it kind of like a chisel. I am slightly angling it like this, slightly angling it, and I'm pinching it on the edge right there. So, you know, it's kind of like a personal preference on that, but that's just what I typically do. Even whenever I'm forging in my bevels, I will always slightly angle it whenever I'm forging. And it just lets me pinch it how I want to do it. It's a personal preference, you don't have to do it that way. What's up, Clement? What's up, No Name? Exactly, there you go. Now, I have forged a lot, so it's definitely not one of those things where I've been doing it for 3 years, but I have forged a lot of blades in that process from that time period. really starting to flare out now. Now what I'm going to do on the next heat is I'm going to come in and I'm going to hit it with the dog head and flatten it out, and then I'm going to forge that bevel back up towards the spine a little bit. So I'm going to forge it flat because we have big indentions in it right now. Let's see the easiest way for y'all to see this. There you go. Got big indentions in there right now, all the way across that edge. I'm going to end up taking it, forging it flat. What that's going to do is it's going to basically make everything even, and it's going to widen this as we do that. And then I'm going to forge those back in towards the spine a little bit. So we're going to forge it back up towards the spine and actually thin out that spine just a little bit more. So my thought process on this is whenever, let's see if y'all can see me now while it's heating back up. So my thought process on this is I want to be able to make sure that even though I'm trying to flare out that cutting edge, that I don't leave the area towards the spine or the top of the bevels super thin. Man, my throat just decided that it was dry and it did not want to work. So I am coughing. I typically am able to edit this stuff out, so y'all are just going to bear with me. So typically what I'm thinking about whenever I'm forging in these things is whether I'm going to leave material in a certain space so that I can utilize it later, or if I'm going to go through and try and make sure that I thin it out so that it doesn't screw me up later. So we're widening this edge a lot, but we still have a ton of thickness towards the spine. If I was to just widen the edge and then try and, thin out that spine, that material's got to go somewhere. So it's either going to go to length or it's going to go to width. It's got to go somewhere. If I'm going to thin that area down and I'm going to move that material, it's either got to go towards the cutting edge or it's got to go towards the sides. That's it. Now, it could technically go towards the spine, like towards height, depending on how I forged it, but I really am only going to forge so much of it into height. And by default, we're going to get some of that anyways, but I want to go ahead and get rid of some of that material right now so that I'm not having to screw with it later. Let's see here. Get back with you on Saturday. I'm happy to have you here. So we're going to go ahead, get this back out, and continue to forge it. So we're starting to get a nice taper on there and a nice flare to it. Go back in, forge. So whenever I get to a certain point on this, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have to turn the piece sideways because my forge is about 6 inches tall, the internal chamber, but it's only like 4 inches wide. So if I don't turn it on its side and I just keep laying it down, it can only be a ULU that's 4 inches wide. So I am going to have to hit a point where I turn it up on its side and let it heat up that way, because if I can get the cutting edge to be about 5 inches wide, I'll be happy with that. You know, it doesn't have to be too crazy. What's up, Maxilla? How you doing? So it doesn't have to be anything too crazy, but we want to make sure that we're actually going through and not making it so big that it doesn't fit in the forge. That ain't going to help anybody. So again, what I'm going to continue to do is keep forging that back towards the spine, thin that spine down just a little bit. What I might end up doing on this next heat is, instead of using the dog head, I might go ahead and switch to the straight peen side of the hammer and just forge extra height in. And what I mean by that is how we've been doing this. We've been forging with the cross peen to make it wider. I think what I'm going to go ahead and do on this next heat, flip it over, and I'm going to get just a little bit of height out of it while still tapering from the spine down to the edge. So we're going to get a little bit of height out of it, out of this next heat. What's up, Jason? How you doing? What's up, Goliath? I bet it does. So, yeah. It should be pretty warm now, so it should be able to pull it. Yep. Let's go ahead and grab this and continue forward. So you'll see the lines are going sideways now. I think what I want to get height-wise is almost the width of my anvil, maybe not that high. If I can go to about 3.5 inches tall, I think I'll be happy with that. Between 3 and 3.5 inches. Give you an idea of how much further we need to go. It is almost 3 inches right now. So we just need to go about another 1/2 inch in height, which we'll get that by default as we forge. So we need about another 1/2 inch in height there, so we can get it to about 3 inches. If we go over that, then fantastic. Yep, that's actually a thing that happened for me to show people how deep the chamber is on my forge. So the internal chamber of my forge is 19 inches, which is about as long as my arm here. So yeah, showing how deep the forge is. Yep, we actually talked about that on the podcast. If y'all don't follow it, you can go look up the Knives Templars podcast. It's not Knights Templars, it's Knives Templars podcast, and we talk about that in this one that just released today. So recorded it last night, it released today. What's up, Mule? How you doing? We're forging the ULU. And we're forging it out of a chunk of Damascus that I got from Steve Jennings, which is the guy who made my power hammer. Not really something you can do in the UK. Sure it is. There's tons of blacksmiths in the UK. Now bladesmithing is kind of its own little thing over there because of y'all's restrictions on knives. So I know that would probably be a thing. I know there's plenty of blacksmiths over there, but I think that bladesmithing might be a little in the gray area because of y'all's laws against knives and all that stuff. But yeah, you do have Alex still over there doing it. Of course, he makes a lot of things and does tool restorations and does a lot of stuff like that. So I really don't know what y'all's laws are or any of those things, so I don't know. You think he just doesn't care? That's a possibility. All right. Keep going here. We're going to continue forge in that direction, getting a little bit of height out of it as we go, and still tapering it. A lot of this is going to be really managing material, going this way, this way, this way, this way, until we get it down to what we want. So on the next heat, we're going to go through and we're going to take the cross peen and we're going to forge in some width. So we've been working on height for this last little bit. Now we're going to work on width. And again, we're doing it with the old two bastard straight peen, cross peen. Now this is their, what we call a fat peen. It's kind of funny, his little terms for that, but it is a cross peen hammer. It just happens to be a fatter peen, which I personally tend to like whenever I'm forging like this. I do have, if you want to know what a kind of like a narrower one looks like, it looks like that. So you can see how much wider this one is than that one right there. This is going to put pretty aggressive marks into it, and it's going to actually do some pretty aggressive forging. I like to use it whenever I'm working on things like finger shoils and stuff like that. I need to get into a tight area. But when it comes to moved material, I really like this one because it doesn't put really aggressive dents in, but it still gives you the same function. Do you do voodoo to make the ULU? No, I don't. Well, not like witchcraft voodoo, but I do move some material. Can you show how to make fire with slamming a metal rod? No. I mean, there's people that can do that. I've never really tried it. Okay, let's go back into some width forging. And this time I went through and I forged width pretty much all the way up. So not stopping just on the edge. I went all the way up towards the spine because we want to get some nice width and height out of that material that we have all the way up here. But you can see we're starting to get a pretty thin edge as it goes right there. Now, of course, I say pretty thin. It's about 1/4 of an inch right now, maybe just under that. So it's still thick, but not like 3C's thick. But we are almost at the width of the floor of our forge right now. Experience, I say the confidence because there's like a couple of my arm pulls. This, oh yeah, I feel you. Fortunately, I have to go. Well, hey, I hope you have a awesome family reunion. And yes, I am making an ULU. Still, it's from Norwich. Okay, so doing that versus being like in one of the big cities. I don't know much about like where things are in the UK, so I'm gonna assume that it is out of the way if you say that it is. I wonder how many people who are chiming into this live stream actually know what an ULU is. So I am not. I am basically like a English, Welsh, Scottish mixture. So let's go up here. I'm going to zoom y'all out. Well, let's go in about right there. So when it comes to an ULU, of course I have a whole bunch of knives that I've drawn up here. So a lot of them are going to be kind of like that. Now, of course, they're typically more symmetrical than that. They have a handle up top here, and then a nice even bevel to the edge. So that's typically what you're going to see. Just a slightly round edge right here, and then an even bevel going up to the handle. So you can basically take it and grab it like this, and you can scrape with it, you can rock and chop with it, you can clean things with it, you can do whatever you need to do with that. It's a nice multi-tool. But you know, they were pretty simple to make whenever you were making them out of stone back in the days. Of course, nowadays you can make them out of, you know, steel and all that. It's kind of the same thing with whenever we were making the, well, a lot of the knives that I've made that were like old school tools made out of antler and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and drop y'all back down. And point you back at the anvil. And make sure we're actually in view here. Go. Continue to draw out width on this. Go. Edge is still coming down. Again, we need to continue to forge the spine to where it's thinner. So I'm going to switch to the dog head on this next heat, and we're going to compress this whole entire thing down. So now that we have that rough shape that we're going for, now that we have that rough profile, whenever I use the dog head on this and I come in and I hammer the whole entire thing, it's basically going to move everything out. So it's going to thin it and move it all the way out. So the thing with some people is there's a lot of people that don't know what these knives are used for or what they are. So there's going to be people who are going to click on this live stream and go, that doesn't look like a knife, because it's a tool and a knife all in the same thing. You use it as a knife, but it's a multi-purpose tool that they use for a lot of things. There's a smaller variation for sewing, tools used for cleaning. Good to know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could use it for whatever you want to use it for. I've seen people use ULUs for all kinds of stuff and different videos and things like that, so you gotta educate the unwashed masses. The funny thing is, so there are plenty of knives that were made that are multi-purpose tools, and yes, do they make smaller versions of it? Yeah. But a lot of times when we call knives kitchen knives, some people will call like chef's knives kitchen knives. But whenever you think about kitchen knives, there's a lot of knives in the kitchen knife category. You know, paring knives, larger chef's knives, choppers, you know, a lot of different things, but a lot of people call them kitchen knives. You know, I would like to know what the different names for the smaller versions and the different variations of it. If they were just called ULUs and there were different versions of the ULUs, or if there was like the ULU was the knife version, but the one that they used to do skinning was a completely different name, or the ones that they used for sewing was a completely different name. That would be kind of interesting to know. Right, dog head time. Quite a bit wider, quite a bit taller. So we got plenty of thickness to narrow down. Let's see here. So right now we are 3 1/4 inches wide by 3 inches tall. So the width is at the cutting edge, so 3 1/4 inches wide at the cutting edge and about 3 inches tall. Yeah, it's an ULU knife. Now, of course, as you're forging it, it kind of looks like an axe head. It's just, but this is a little bit different because the piece of material that I started with was like 5/8 of an inch thick, so it looks more like an axe head than it typically would if I was just using like 1/2 inch thick stock. But because it was such a thick chunk of steel, it looks like an axe head right now. But we are going to forge that spine down to about 1/4 of an inch thick and have it taper down to a nice thin edge. We only sharpen one side of the yep. So that actually would make it a lot easier too. And just like whenever I did the Yakut knife, you only sharpen one side of it. So one side is just the profile of that, and you sharpen one side, and that's what's giving you the edge. And that was really cool. I mean, it's one of those things where I loved making the Yakut. That was a really cool knife. You know, being able to forge it almost like a spoon, and then go through, do the profiling. I made mine a little bit different than what you typically see, but it was me throwing my own flair at it. And but yeah, I liked that project. And sharpening it, super easy. And the cool thing about only sharpening one side, you're not really doing like a chisel grind on it. It's not, it's a yes and no. It doesn't have as an aggressive like grind to it. It's still, you know, a nice fine edge. But yeah, of course, if I wanted to, I could sharpen it both sides or one side or anything like that, because I'm not making it like, you know, historically accurate. I'm using Damascus for one thing, or pattern welded steel for people who don't like people calling stuff Damascus. What is, I think he'd like that too. 12-inch blade. That's cool. I'm going to look those up too. Okay, we brought that spine down quite a bit thinner. We do need to go down probably about another half as thick as that. Let's see. Not even that. We're at 3/8 of an inch thick at the spine. So we've forged it down 3/8 to 3/8 of an inch. We need to go down another 1/8 of an inch to get to that 1/4 inch that we want it to be at. So, yeah, we'll do that. Do a backflip. I'm 40 years old. I'm not doing a backflip. But, when I make ULUs, I just cut out handsaw blade. It's all good. You know, as long as you're making something, it's still cool you're making something. I'm just having fun with this big chunk of Damascus that I had. So we're just going to do something cool. I think it's going to look good whenever I go through and clean it all up and grind it and all that stuff. And then put a handle on it. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do antler or bone, because I have both of those. I might just play with it. I do have a cool piece of antler that I think might work out real well with this particular blade, so I might go that direction. And I'm probably going to leave the forging texture towards the handle and then grind up into it, so you'll see all the Damascus layers as you get down towards the cutting edge, but I'm going to have some of that brute to forge texture up towards the handle. What about caribou antler? I don't have caribou antler. That'd be cool. Could probably get some, but I don't have any on hand. I live in Texas. Okay, next heat, we're going to work on forging width, and then we're going to do a little bit more height. I think we'll be getting close there. We are about 1/4 of an inch away right now from being the width of my forge. So once I do this heat where I am forging the width into it with the 2 bastards straight beam cross beam, as I'm going through and I'm forging that, this next heat I'll have to put it up on its side for it to heat up. Now the way that my forge works, it's got a square chamber. The burners come in from the side. They blow towards the top of the fire brick, and then it rotates in there and creates an actual vortex of heat inside there, which is pretty cool. All I'm going to do is where the burners blow here, I'm going to put my blade on the back side. I have just enough room so that in between the burner and the side of the forge, or the end of the forge, so I'm going to put my blade here. The flame's going to hit here, come back, and hit a nice even heat instead of one particular spot. I do take fan mail. If you want, send me an email. It's just theriversexperience@yahoo.com. So just the channel name minus the little apostrophe after the S. So theriversexperience@yahoo.com, and I'll get you my address. You can go ahead and send me some over. Let's go ahead and turn this back just a little bit. And use a straight beam cross beam for this. Let's get some width out of this. Almost the width of the anvil now. On there. Nice and flared out. Let's see if it's the width of my anvil from the forge. It is. So now we're in there at an angle. Be careful with that hammer so I don't sit on my, yeah, I'm not gonna say it. So, wow, maybe the wrong capital on probably the E and not the S, Duck. That's how everybody reads the name of the channel. If it doesn't have the apostrophe, that's how they read it, because everybody goes to the word sex in the Rivers Experience. Send your email. For Keith. Yeah, I think that having the caribou on there would be really cool. So I'm excited about that. That's the material I'll put on there. What I like about this too is the chunk of Damascus I got from Steve Jennings, again the guy who made my power hammer. This guy. And it'd be cool to have the handle material coming from one of y'all as well. So Steve was a subscriber and a person I talked to a lot on the phone. But he made this and ended up delivering it from Kansas to me. Brought it down here. We took a fixed panel off. Him, me, and a guy named Matt Rich loaded it, and plus my wife got it onto the pad, got it into the shop, and got it bolted down. We will fast track it as soon as I actually get the antler. Okay. We've got our cutting edge getting thinner, side profile. It's looking pretty good. So now, on this next heat, we'll switch up the hammers. So we're going to grab this is a collab hammer. It's Two Bastards and Mark Ling. So, Two Bastards, of course, the channel sponsor for our channel, and then Mark Ling. We're going to use the rounding hammer. We're going to use the round side, and I'm going to start really working on the bevels with the round side on this, and that is going to expand it out quite a bit on this next heat. So I'm going to go in and do that. Whew. Yes, we're going okay here. Can you repair a fire break? Technically you can, yeah. And plaster repairs can do a lot of things, but castable refractory is probably the easiest thing. But yeah, you can repair a fire brick, but fire brick really isn't that expensive. If you go to, this is not a sponsor for the channel or anything like that. If you go to hightemptools.com, so just high temp as a temperature, tools.com, you can get fire bricks on there for pretty cheap, unless you have like a Tractor Supply around you that sells them. But that's where I get all the fire brick for my forges. Now, of course, I have a lot of fire brick. I've got my entire forge that's up here, which is a pretty big forge, plus an entire forge worth of fire brick behind my propane tank over here. And the whole point behind that is I have a one burner forge that I build whenever I'm going to do Damascus. It's like a sacrificial forge, because what ends up happening is the floor of the forge gets like destroyed from the flux or the borax, and so I have like a sacrificial fire brick that goes in the bottom, a harder one, and I'm not worried about that forge melting down. The one that I have up here, you know, I don't want to mess it up unless I have to. Okay, round side of the hammer. Now, we're nice and wide on there. Probably go a little bit wider than that. I do need to move a little bit more material out that way. So I am going to drive it that direction, and then we're going to come up and flatten this area across here a little bit. Forge that down some. So I mean, you can see it's not a super complicated thing to forge, but as long as you are comfortable with where you're moving your material, you'll be fine. You don't need a ton of hammers to be able to make this particular profile or this particular blade. If you had a straight peen, cross peen, and a rounding hammer, you'd be good to go. That's all you really need to make this. I just happen to have my dog head, of course, again, Two Bastards. I happen to have this. I really like using this particular hammer because it puts my hand up off the anvil face. So whenever I'm forging, I can forge all the way over the steel and everything, and my hand's not hitting the anvil. Normal hammer, whenever you forge, your hand is really close to the anvil. You could risk hitting it. Plus, it gets your fingers really close to hot, material. The dog head's just awesome, but you don't need that. Smaller V-bore forge. Yeah, so what'll happen is whenever you use borax in your forge, it will turn the chemical reaction from the borax and the fire brick, it just turns to glass and it melts the bottom of your forge. Just absolutely melts it. So be mindful of that. All right, let's grab this and continue forging. Still using a round side. Okay, I'm not going to switch and forge on the other side. I'll do that on the next heat. But we're getting pretty thin on there. That's starting to look real good. So we are working on an ULU, which is, of course, an ULU. We're forging it out of Damascus. So the steel was given to me by Steve Jennings, the guy who made my power hammer a while back. And I've been wanting to use it on a few different projects. I got a really big bar from him. And the other piece is going to be for a future project where I'm making a big buoy out of it. So y'all will see that chunk again at some point. But doing this, it's about 100 layers. I think it's going to look real good on a ULU build because you'll see all the waves going across it, almost like a seashell. So I think it's going to be a cool looking build whenever it's all said and done. And then of course Keith is going to be sending some caribou antler so that we can actually use that for the handle, which I think is going to be absolutely awesome. And right now what we're working on is kind of expanding the whole piece. We already started from 5/8 of an inch steel all the way across. It was 5/8 of an inch by about almost 2 inches by 1.5 inches. And we forged it down to a taper and then flared it out. And then we've been just slowly but surely moving it out wider and getting it taller and then getting it wider as we go. And right now we're in the kind of the widening of the whole entire shape. So just as if you put it on a copier and you said you want it to be 10% bigger, that's what we want. We want everything to move. A little bit in height, a little bit in width, all that stuff. So we're using the round side of our hammer, the rounding hammer, and making everything bigger. This time we're going to be forging on the other side than we just ended on. Getting a nice taper on that. Nice profile. The dance into the hammer strikes, that's awesome. that back in the forge. And again, what we're doing is we're expanding the whole entire thing. How many pound tanks do you use per blade or set of blades? So I'll use one of my little 5-gallon propane tanks, and that's of course just a little grill size. We've done, I think on that one bottle right there, I forged, I guess, about 5 Saturday live streams. So if you do an average of about 2 hours per live stream, about 10 hours worth of forging, give or take a little bit. Most of the time we forge for longer than that. But yeah, probably about 10 hours. That's straight forging is where we're at right now, and we're still using that same bottle. I'm running at about 12, 13 PSI right now. Nothing too crazy. Doug would probably say it's a little bit too much. So if you're looking for the Discord for the channel, it's in the About Me page on YouTube. So if you just click on my icon, and you'll see it in the actual description of the channel or whatever. I've got the Discord link in there. How many of your knives do you keep? Way too many. I have a website where a lot of my knives are for sale on, and so I keep them in my inventory until I end up selling one. So yeah, I've got a few that need to go out that were sold, and I have one that I'm working on a Kydex. We're working on Kydex sheets for, and all that. That's going to be going out soon, and then got another one that's going to be going out here soon as well. But yeah, all my knives on my website right now are on sale, just in case y'all are wondering and wanting to scoop one up. All right, so let's go ahead. Keep going. So I want to show y'all something. So right now, if you look at it, you'll see that this side has more of a straight, this side has a little bit of a hook. If you look at the side profile, this side is a little bit thinner than this side. You might not be able to tell that much, but there's a thicker section in this area right here. There's a thicker section right there than there is on that side. So what's going to happen is on this next heat, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to forge that down, and that will straighten that up. And it will push this edge that's a little bit higher right here, going to go in this way, push that down a little bit as well. So whenever I thin that side, it will stretch that whole side and pull it down. What size hammer do you use for this part? So this right here is about a 2.5 pound hammer. I use anywhere from that size all the way up to a 5 pound. I've got a few 5 pound hammers. This one's a pretty beefy hammer, my dog head. It's about 3.5 pounds. And then I've got a few Fire Creek Forge hammers that are in that 4.5, 5 pound range. And then I've got a cross peen from Two Bastards that is a 5 pound cross peen. It's a big hammer. I'm going to show y'all a big old hammer. Give me just a second. So, regular hammer, big hammer. That is a very big hammer. That's a 5-pounder right there. For whenever you're really needing to stretch material out, this is the one. That's the guy. They made that specifically for me, and I love it. All right, let's go ahead and grab this thing. Should be hot enough already. I'm gonna give it just another about 15 seconds, and then we're gonna start forging on it. So about another 15 seconds. Get a little sip of water. Let's go ahead. Let's grab this thing. You see right now, we have that curve right there. No more curve. So that's it straight right there. It is this side. But now we have even sides on there. Now we can continue to forge that out. And we're pretty good on spine thickness, almost edge thickness. So in this next heat, we're going to go ahead and just basically planish everything with the dog head, get everything kind of planished, and then we'll planish it again with my planishing hammer. So we'll go ahead and switch over to the dog head. So the cool thing to know is if any of y'all, it shouldn't have expired now. Yeah, now I'll check out that email, Keith. So if you're getting into blacksmithing or bladesmithing and you're trying to find the right hammers, again, go check out the Two Bastards Texas 50th Supplies. So they are the channel sponsor, but I love their hammers. So it's not like I'm just going, hey, I got these random hammers from this random Chinese company on eBay or something like that, and y'all should go support them because they sent them to me for free. No, these are very good hammers by actual people who make hammers. So if you want to go check them out, Two Bastards, Texas Smithy and Supply on Facebook. Cool thing is, Frank and Nita, it's a husband and wife. They're the Two Bastards. They've been doing this for like 6 years. It's not like they just tell you, you have to buy my hammer. If your budget is smaller and you need to figure out how to make a hammer that's going to work for you, they'll actually tell you what to do. So it's very cool, super cool people. They're not just going to try and sell you something that you don't need. All right. Let's grab this thing and planish it. We do not need a lot of heat in the steel to do the planishing phase. So that is looking real good. You see our cutting edge is nice and straight. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and thin out the top section just a little bit more. I'm pretty cool with the thickness of the cutting edge, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to thin out the top section about another, not even an eighth, just a little bit less than that. Actually, on this next heat, I'm going to go ahead and break this tab off. I'll show you what tab I'm talking about here in just a second. So I went ahead and I broke the tab off. I don't need it on here at this point. We're not trying to move a bunch of material. I'm going to go ahead and grab it from the cutting edge. And we'll go ahead and flatten out this back section. So we're going to end up hammering on this section right here. And like I said, I'm only going to go about another maybe 1/16 of an inch, maybe just about 1/8 of an inch thinner, maybe not even 1/8. We're just going to go just a hair thinner. Let's see here. What gas pressure do you run for forge welding steel? Really what I'm looking for is the amount of dragon's breath, or whatever you want to call it, coming out. But really all I do is I take a electric temperature gauge, a laser thermometer, and I hold it about 6 feet away from my forge, and I crank up the forge and mess with the air a little bit so that I don't have as much oxygen going on in there. It's a little bit more propane heavy, and I crank it up until it hits about 2100 degrees. So I'm not just looking at just the PSI. You do have a lot of burners have a choke on them to really adjust the amount of air that you have going into it, and then the amount of propane and all of that. And we're just trying to get to a certain temp, and whatever the mixture is to be able to get to the heat that I needed to get to, which typically is going to be about 2100 degrees. Do I need permission to join the Discord? It just says invalid invite when I click Discord. Yeah, we might have to send you an invite or something like that. If you would, you can always just message me on one of my regular videos, or you can send me an email, theriversexperience@yahoo.com, and it's just like the channel name minus the apostrophe after Rivers, and I'll send you a link. sides. About one more heat and we should be good. So on this next heat, we're going to switch to the fanciest hammer in my whole entire shop. This little bitty old auto body hammer from 1996, 1997. Just a little old hammer that would come with like a hammer and dolly set for auto body. I did auto body for a few years, and I got this whenever I was doing my schooling, my auto body school. And I like to use it to planish. It's a very light hammer. It does really good planishing work. When are you getting a press? I don't know just yet. It's got to be in the budget. Of course, I do have my homemade power hammer from Steve Jennings right here. That does a lot of work. So you have that as well. I don't use this very much in the actual live streams just because it's very loud, and I typically start these live streams about 6:30 p.m. and I would start forging at about 7 o'clock with this, and it's loud. It's not that it's much louder than my hammer and anvil, but it's a deeper, bassier noise, and it travels really far. It's doom, doom, doom versus that higher pitched noise. It's a big bassy noise. Make sure everything's straight. Make sure it has an even bevel on both sides. There, my friends, come around here so y'all can actually see me as I talk to y'all. Hello. There is our ULU. So a nice gradual taper to the edge. Nice profile with a nice flare to it. Could I have made it wider? Of course. But we did gain almost twice the width as what it was. So definitely not too bad. Nice profile. I'll of course clean that up. The reason why I didn't forge it thinner than that is because it is a 100-layer Damascus. So I do want to grind through it a little bit, because grinding through it is going to show all the layers. So I don't want to bring it down to like a forge to finish, because you want to grind through it a little bit to expose all the layers. So I think that's going to look really cool whenever we actually grind it, get everything cleaned up. But I'm happy with this. And to give you an idea of the actual width that we started with, this is what it cut off of. This piece right here. So this is how much we gained in width. Right there. So that's the original width and thickness. We were able to forge it down to that thin and get that much width out of it. And then of course, plenty of height out of it as well, because it was almost a square. So about that much height, about that much width, and a nice thin layer. So definitely a lot of material moving. It wasn't like we just started with a little piece of flat steel. You know, we started with something that was 5/8 of an inch thick and forged it down to that. Well, yeah, this is a body hammer for cars. I use it to planish. This is always my last hammer that I use on the steel. And yes, the hammer that we used the most in this one is probably my Two Bastards dog head hammer. And then, right after that, the cross peen, straight peen from Two Bastards. So those are the two main hammers that we used. I always use this as a planishing tool because it lets me get nice, consistent control. Now what we're going to do is this goes into the forge to come up to temperature. I'm actually going to put it in there, the spine first, because that takes a little bit longer to heat up. So the phase that I'm doing right now is called annealing, where we're actually going to anneal the steel. And what are the tongs? Also from Bastards. Now these are from Iron Dungeon Forge. So that's from them. I'll actually, here, let me show y'all. These people right here. So if you want to know, Iron Dungeon Forge, irondungeonforge.com. They're the ones that I get, like these tongs, also my different size of box jaw tongs for blade making, actual bladesmithing tongs. I get those from them as well. Another, it's not a sponsor, I paid full price for these tongs. So I know that they're worth it if I'm willing to spend the money on them. So tongs from them, but like I was saying just a second ago, with the annealing process, we want to do that when we're done forging. Let's say we're going to forge tomorrow on it some more. I still end up doing a annealing phase just because it kind of resets everything. And what the annealing phase is, we bring it up to about 1600 degrees and let it cool inside the forge. The little caveat to that is if your forge is hotter than 1600 degrees when you're forging, you want to bring the steel up a little bit in temp and then shut the forge, and what it'll do is the blade will continue to heat up to about 1600 degrees and then cool down. If you let your blade come up to 1600 degrees and then shut your forge off and then close the forge, if it's still about 1900 degrees in there, your blade will continue heating up past 1600 and then it will get too hot. So you only want it to come up to about 1600 degrees and let it cool. So get a little bit of color in the steel, close it off, shut everything, and let it cool slowly. But yeah, I use, of course, all kinds of different hammers in the forging process. Let's go ahead and bring y'all up here. Come on up just a little bit more, and there we go. So I use a lot of different hammers in this process to make a lot of different blades. When it comes to a lot of things that we forged on the channel, we have forged blacksmith knives, we have forged unique knives, swords, of course buoys. This is a little ULU style thing that we just got done forging. I have forged a lot of different blades in this process. So right now, it is the right temperature. close that off. I'm going to show you all a few things that we have forged in these live streams. Of course, one of the ones that we're working on right now on our Shop Talk Tuesdays is this guy right here. So we did this. We forged it on one of the live streams. It's an integral bolster kukri. So, of course, the bolster is forged into it. And then we are doing some crazy stuff to it. I am actually working on dragon scales for the spine. You've probably seen file work on a spine before, but you probably haven't seen that amount of file work. It's where all the scales actually go into the ones in front of it. That one's pretty crazy, but that's one of the builds that we're working on right now in the Shop Talk Tuesday series. The next one that we're doing, we're going to be grinding in bevels and doing a little bit of filing. But we've done those. I've done Quakens with double bevels on them. So this has a bevel going towards the spine and the cutting edge with a medial ridge running all the way down it, which is pretty unique because that's a medial ridge on a curved blade as opposed to just focusing on doing it on a straight blade. A little bit more work goes into that. We, of course, did this little unique guy right here. Forged a little swirl. This is an integral handled knife where the handle is all forged. And the spine of the knife and all that. This is my version of like a Legolas build. All integral. That's going to be really cool when it's all said and done. We did that on one of the live streams. We've done cleavers. These are Serbian cleavers. This one is 3/8 of an inch thick at the spine. This one's about 1/4 of an inch thick, with both of them having distal tapers forged into them. The Serbian cleavers, we forged those on the live streams. We have done, I'm going to show y'all a couple more. We did this guy right here, which is a mini spear. And that, of course, has the bevels forged into it. You can see the ridge down the center there. But that is a really cool mini throwing spear, and it throws like a son of a gun. But that guy right there, we did that on a live stream. This sacks with the fullers that are forged. We did that on a live stream. The next build that we do is going to have forged fullers. So we've got another build that's coming next week on Saturday. Same time, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to do forged fullers on it. But that's a sax. It's a half full, half hidden tang. So on the spine, you'll see this, and then it will dive into the handle. So this piece will be part hidden. This will be full. It's going to be a unique looking build. And then, of course, I forged this one just to show y'all what a full forged to finished knife looks like. When it comes to this particular build right here, the handle scales are going to be smaller than the actual tang. I'm not doing anything other than wire wheeling this entire thing. It's already forged to the cutting edge thickness. So all I got to do is put in a cutting edge bevel on there. Once I heat treat it, it's got distal tapers forged into it all the way down to a very fine point on the distal taper towards the tip, towards the back. The bevels are forged in. You can see this is the plunge line radius right here. On both sides. Plunge line radius. That right there is actually going to be a steak knife for me. But yeah. Nice, really cool profile. That's going to be a unique build. But yeah, we did that. We did a full forged to finish build on that. I've done a lot of different random knives. So it's fun. So what power hammer? This is made by Steve Jennings. This is my power hammer that he built. It's got a 40-pound ram right here. Works like an absolute champ. It's very stout, very beefy. It's a Ford leaf spring at the top. Of course, nice 2-horse motor. That thing works like an absolute champ. This is a solid bar here. So it's not a tube. It's solid all the way down. It's kind of, if you have, it's an electrically driven trip hammer. So you're not sitting there doing this. It's got a motor that has a bar on the back side attached to one of the wheels. So that pushes it up and drops it down. So it actually raises this and lets it drop. Raises it, lets it drop, raises it, lets it drop. Yeah, so we'll grab some aluminum real quick. I've got this little test bar that I show people how it works. We'll turn it on real quick and I'll show y'all. So take my little spacer out. Voila. Nice and easy, nice and simple, nothing too crazy, but it works like a champ and it's awesome. So that's the, I don't know how much y'all can even see of me doing this here. Just because I like actually messing with the dang thing, I'm going to actually put y'all at a better angle. But yeah, it does a really good job. Now, of course, this is aluminum, which it's going to do pretty much what it does to this whenever the steel's hot. So whenever you actually have the steel warmed up, it's going to do basically what this just did, which is pretty nice. I love it. I like showing people on the aluminum because it's just like hitting on hot steel without hitting on cold steel. But there's a lot of people that like watching me use it. I just don't really use it that much in the live streams just because it's loud. It's typically late at night. Now my neighbors don't really care. You can't really hear it that much on the inside of the houses. Even though it has a bassy tone, it might sound louder in your actual, if you're wearing a headset or whatever, it might sound louder in that, but really it's not that loud. And I like using it. But I don't tend to use it in the videos or in the live streams just because it moves it a little bit faster than I want it to. It moves the material a little bit too fast for the live stream pace. Now, of course, I have challenged myself to forge as fast as it, and I can do it. But typically, whenever I'm doing that, I'm using this hammer right here. This is a Fire Creek Forge hammer. Now the cool thing about Two Bastards Forge being my sponsor, they don't care if I use this hammer or tell y'all who this is. They're not saying, oh, you can only use our hammers in your videos. They don't care. This is Fire Creek Forge. He was on here earlier. His name's Elijah. This is a just under 5-pound rounding hammer. It's a very aggressive rounding side. Almost like if you sectioned off a softball on there, and then a nice big flat side. But if I'm forging with this, I can forge as fast as that. But the difference is, of course, I'm using my body to do it, and that is a lot of strength, a lot of exhaustion to do the same thing that this can do without exhausting me at all. So I can use this hammer for as long as I want. I used to use this hammer solely before I got this dog head hammer right here. And I really like it because you can see the difference in how much it raises that head or the handle up off the anvil. So whenever I'm using this one right here, because your knuckles are almost even with the head, if you try and forge on top of the anvil, your knuckles are like boom, right there. You can't forge on top of steel that's hot. Whenever you're using this one, your hand is way away from the anvil. And you can forge on top of hot steel. So that is the reason why I like it so much. But yeah, if I'm trying to absolutely get after it, I can forge just as fast as the power hammer with this hammer right here. I've tested it, I've tried it, and I'm able to do it. So you can do that. I can compete with this. Now, of course, that doesn't get tired. I get tired. But yeah, my wife's in the house right now. I had that going for that whole entire time. She couldn't hear it. And my house is like, I don't know, maybe 35 feet from the shop. So my back door, about 35 feet from the shop. That's pretty cool. So, do any of y'all have any questions for me while y'all have me on here? We're at about 1 hour and 45 minutes. If y'all have any questions about any of the stuff that I've done in the video or any of the stuff that I've done in any of the other videos, feel free to ask me right now. You know, that's one of the plus sides to doing the live streams is y'all get to actually communicate with me. I'm going to make a copy of a 115-year-old cleaver I already own. That'll be pretty cool. Two copies, nice. So I've done a bunch of different cleavers. I love making cleavers. One of the things that I want to do, there you go, mule. That's one of the things that I want to do. I plan on making a competition chopper, an actual like regulation competition chopper with the mat that's underneath the power hammer is actually a horse stall mat. So this big black section that's right here, that's actually a horse stall mat that I have under there, kind of deadens the sound. But the handles on those are horse stall mats on a lot of the competition choppers. So I'm going to be doing a competition chopper, like an actual real one, real size, actual dimensions that they require, lengthwise, weight, all that stuff. The weight's kind of like, it's not a huge thing, but I'm going to do the whole entire thing with the same handle that my friends have made for other people, competition choppers. And we're going to have a little bit of that fun in the backyard. I'm going to do a little bit of a setup like what they do with their little zones and their sections that they do for it. I'll do a rope chop, like a hanging static rope chop, do a little straw chop, do a rope cut, do a little pull noodle cut, and then do, of course, the either 2x4 or 2x6, and go through all that in the backyard. To prepay, nope. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. A bit off topic, but what year is the Porsche? And have you ever done a video just with the car? Yes, I have. I've done a video kind of doing a run through what the car is, and I did a video of when I got my exhaust done on it. So what the car sounds like before the exhaust with the factory exhaust on it, and then after I had the exhaust done. And I've got videos of it before the lip kit and after the lip kit that's on it and things like that. I didn't really do one before the wheels and all that stuff, but yeah, there's plenty of videos. The last trip to Atlanta, I do a little walk around of it as well. But yeah, I've got stuff on there. If y'all didn't know, I have a Porsche Cayman S, and it's awesome. I love the car. I've done a lot of stuff to it. If you go to my Instagram, the Rivers Experience on Instagram, it's the _Rivers _experience. If you do not do the underscores, it will not take you to the Instagram. So the_Rivers_experience. If you go there, you'll actually see pictures of the car on there. Pretty cool. The piece of steel I have that I need to split in half down this side. This is about 1 inch thick. Yeah, you could absolutely do that though. Yeah, I'm a JDM fan too. I had a 420 horsepower turbocharged 8th gen Civic SI. I've had tons of Honda Civics. I've had everything from that to Subarus to Hyundai Genesis that was built stroker motor and all that. Yeah, I've had a lot of different cars. As I've been married to my wife, I have had probably, we've been married for 20 years, and I think I've had like a stupid amount of cars. Stupid amount of cars. It's ridiculous. I've had a lot of cars. A whole lot. I typically keep about 4 cars in my driveway at any given time. I'm about to be selling one of my trucks and buying an Audi. I had an Audi, sold the Audi, and now I think I'm going to sell my truck and buy another Audi. Nice, gotta love that. How did the Elvish dagger blade come out? So I have not finished that yet. I've got a few things that I want to work on before that because I've got the current Shop Talk Tuesday build. If I was still full-time knife making, I would have time for all this, but I work for Pepsi now, and I work a lot of hours. It's starting to calm down a little bit, but I was working like a lot of hours. Like today, I went to work at 5 a.m., got off at 4 p.m., and then took a couple of hours to eat and get a game plan for this particular build and weld some things up and all that. And then I started the live stream. So I've been going since 5 a.m. this morning. Got up at about 4:30 a.m. I'm on about 3 hours of sleep right now. So, yeah. And I've got the plan for it, but just in case you're wondering what he's talking about, this right here. This is the Elvish blade. Which is going to be pretty cool when it's all said and done. All integral. Oh, and just so y'all can see where I'm at. Now, I did skip ahead on one of the knives. I've still got work to do on it and everything. This is just kind of like pre-heat treat bevels. But this is the dagger from last week's live stream. So that shows you the twist in it. Of course, the hole that we drifted in there. And the taper going towards the end. And then, of course, the tip. This is just pre-heat treat grinds. I've still got to center a couple of things up. But that is the one from last weekend with the integral going down into it. And then, of course, that twist, like I said. So that's last weekend's dagger. And it throws like a son of a gun. It's a blast to throw. Now, it's not heat treated yet, so I can throw it all I want. Just don't ever buy a restaurant or BMW, ever. Yeah, no, don't do that. So I'm going to bring y'all with me for a second here. All right. Flip y'all around here. So this is the log that I've been throwing this into. Okay, it went in sideways on that. So it works well. I've done it a bunch on there just to make sure that I actually have the weight right on that. By the way, just in case y'all are wondering, this right here is like from whenever I've done Fruit Ninja on the different challenge builds, where I actually hang them from the tree up here, the fruits and vegetables and all that. We are having, I think that's cantaloupe that's growing right there, from the cantaloupes falling and hitting the ground and all that, from all the different little Fruit Ninja stuff that I've done back here, where like I said, I hang the fruits from the tree. Yeah, now I have like fruits and vegetables growing in my backyard. But yeah, this thing is working like a champ right now. I'm gonna heat treat it, and then I'm gonna go through and anneal it back to probably about a 55 to a 58 hardness on there. But I think that turned out real cool looking. That's just the one that we just took a round bar and just winged it, and we're able to make something cool out of just a piece of round bar coil. And we did that last week on the live stream. We've forged so many different things that it's absolutely crazy, but I have fun doing this. It's a very enjoyable pastime for me. You know, I have a stressful day at work, come in here, forge, talk to y'all, have a blast. Sometimes these live streams are super successful. Sometimes we just hang out and there's like a few of us and we might get like, I don't know, 8,000 views or something like that. Last weekend's, for some reason, when we were forging this, we got 42,000 views on that live stream. So it's been pretty good. But guys, I think we're gonna go ahead and call it here. And next week, like I said, we're going to be forging a build that has integral, well, not integral, but hand forged fullers on there. So I think y'all are going to like that. And it might be an integral bolster build. I haven't decided that yet. I know what profile it's going to be, but yeah, we're going to do some hand forged fullers with the guillotine tool and all that stuff. So you'll actually get to see that build, and I think it's going to. The knife collection is way bigger. The knife collection is way bigger. I have a lot of knives. I was a knife collector for a very long time before I became a knife maker. That's why whenever I focus on ergonomics with knife making, I was able to skip ahead quite a bit in my skill level with thinking through ergonomics on handle profiles, because I've collected them for so long and I have a whole lot that I've held for a lot of time. And I've used them to baton through wood and chop things and whittle things and all that stuff, so I know what comfortable handles should feel like. So whenever I got into knife making, I already had an idea of what a handle should really feel like, and I got to skip ahead. You have some people who want to get into knife making, but were never into collecting knives, and you have to work your way through the handle ergonomic process to figure out what other people really think are comfortable. A lot of times what happens is a newer knife maker who doesn't collect a lot of knives will make what we call broomstick handles, where basically the knife doesn't index right. So it feels the same like this as it does like this, like a broomstick would. They're just round. So this feels just as comfortable as this. It doesn't index to where the cutting edge is down. Sometimes that cutting edge can be down like there, to the side like that. So when they pick it up, you've been holding it like this. If you were blindfolded, you wouldn't know. So, or you could be holding it upside down and go to cut something and boop, slice your hand open. So being able to learn how handles should index and how ergonomic should be within comfort, I got to skip a lot of that because of my knife collection. All right, y'all. I will catch y'all next week, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Come by, hang out, let's forge something with a hand forged fuller. See y'all guys. Y'all have an amazing weekend. Have an amazing week. I'll catch y'all next time.